Hi there, I'm Tony Roberts, the developer of Jinx, which is a new product, and Jinx stands for Java in Excel. What I found from working for various different companies over the last few years is that basically everyone is using Excel somewhere. And that's it's one of these things where it's good and bad, because on the one hand it lets people be productive and get calculations done, but on the other hand, things end up being way too complex. You end up with lots of VBA code, and you end up with these really brittle spreadsheets, which break, when it's really inconvenient. So what we've tried to do with Jinx is to try and solve that problem in a pragmatic way. So, what is Jinx? Well, Jinx is an Excel add-in that embeds any JVM into Excel. It allows developers to write code in Java, Scala, Kotlin, or basically any JVM language, and then call that from Excel either as user-defined worksheet functions or macros or menus. So for those of you who are a bit confused by that lingo, whenever you do equals something in Excel, that's a worksheet function. So Jinx lets you write those functions and some other things in Java. So, yeah, as I said, basically most organizations use Excel somewhere. You may not use it yourself. You may be sitting there thinking like, why would anyone use Excel? And that's pretty common for developers to think that way because of all of the inherent problems that you get. Rather than throwing the whole thing away and saying we should never let anyone use Excel for anything, we can recognize its strengths as a really good user interface tool. And what we do is all that complexity which we don't like about Excel with VBA and lots of really complicated functions that break, is push that complexity to somewhere where we can manage it. So by pushing it into some Java code or some Scala code or wherever, that's much more manageable for us. Because as software engineers, we have sets of tools like version control systems or unit testing and continuous deployment, which we've built up over years to solve exactly that problem of complexity. So using that, along with Excel as our sort of business-facing front end, is a really nice way to get the best of both worlds. Here's a really simple example of how Jinx works. So I hope you can see that we've got a simple method here, and it's decorated with the special Excel function annotation. What that does is when the Jinx add-in is started, it scans any installed jars for these annotations, and then it will know to expose those to Excel. So here it's as simple as taking your regular method, adding that Excel function annotation, and then on the right hand side you can see that we've got this worksheet function, fib, just named the same as the method, allowing our user to call that code. To go through just a few features, because we haven't got much time, one really nice thing, because this is really a tool for developers to expose functionality to users, is we can iterate much more quickly than if we were building an add-in in C++ or something like that, say. What we can do is actually build these jar files and then reload the Jinx add-in without restarting Excel. So that means we can reduce this edit, compile, test cycle to make it like really nice as a developer experience. Things like type conversion happens automatically. So if you've got a function which takes integers or dates or times or whatever, then the conversion from the Excel type to the Java type happens seamlessly. If you've got types which aren't those basic types, you can register your own type converters and do things like pass objects from one function to another. This is a slightly more complicated example, but we won't go into it in too much detail. Basically, it's showing that what we have here is a more complex Java library, which has been developed using unit testing and all these kinds of things. So we know it's a really robust piece of code, but we can allow users to access that in a familiar environment, which is great because rather than them trying to write something similar in VBA and shouting at us when it breaks, here we've got a much more controlled environment. So that's it from me. If you're interested, and I hope you are, then visit the website, xljava.com, to download it. And any questions, feel free to ask. Thank you.